Hey there, this is Jimmy Ann Campbell. I'm your qualifying broker, and I'm so sorry I'm not in that class with you all. I really think Zoom is a great thing to do, and recording it on the cloud is excellent, but I had much rather be in that class with you all so I can have the interaction, so I can see your faces to know if you understand what I'm talking about, and to allow you to ask questions, and so we can clear up a lot of things if there's any confusion. But unfortunately, for today, that won't work. I understand that we will be having this orientation approximately monthly, and I will do this class every time. So if you'd like to come back next time, please let Katie know that and come back and we'll get things cleared up. Also, if you do have a question, I believe that Vicki and Shacarol are there with you all. Ask them the question and see if they know the answer. If they don't, email me or text me and I will respond or call you back when I get to where I can. So again, I'm sorry. Thank you for understanding that I'm just not there today. I'll be there next time. Okay, we got a lot to do. I'm going to go fast. I may go too fast, and let me get all this stuff straight. I will take enough time to take a break or two because my brain may need to rest, but here we go. I'm going to start with the sales package. This is the package, and even though this class is called Contracts 101, that is very, very wide, very, very broad. And we all could sit here and talk probably for 24 hours and not get everything covered. But what I'm going to cover today basically are the documents that you need and why you need them in a sales transaction. We will not read the documents. I will not talk to you about how to fill out the documents with any of the language that must be in there, but that's another day's class. Today, I want you to know what documents you need to use and which documents you must use for compliance. There are some documents that compliance requires, and then there are other documents that you actually need to use to do a good professional job for your client that are not required in compliance. So you have a packet of documents that I prepared for you. We're going to start with the one that this is the first page. This says preparation before the appointment to write an offer. I'm not going to read this to you today, but please take it, look at it, read it. And I tried to put in writing the things that you need to have prepared before you actually take the time to set an appointment, to sit down with your client and write the offer. When buyers find something they want, they're always excited and they want to do it like right now. And in today's market, you probably do need to be pretty quick, or someone else may buy that house that's been on the market for like 3 seconds and 1 inch. So you'll need to be prepared. The main thing is before you show your buyer any properties, make sure that you have pre-qualified them with a lender so that you know they actually can qualify, and that you can get a very fast pre-qualification letter for the amount of the offer they want to make. Or if they're telling you they're going to pay cash, tell them that you must have proof of those funds to submit with their offer to the other agent for the seller. Because we've had folks before say they're going to pay cash, and then what they really meant was they were just going to go to the bank and borrow the cash, which is the same thing as getting a loan. So don't get caught in that trap. Read this. You got any questions about it, reach out to me. This should just be an outline to help you. If you wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh, my stars, what am I supposed to do? Maybe this will help you a little bit. So look at that. All right, the next document in your pack deals with our errors and omissions insurance. Part of your $55 a month covers your errors and omissions insurance for your transactions. The E&O company has done a list here that tells us in our packet, if we have these items, these documents in our packet, then the deductible for that errors and omissions goes away. The deductible can be up as high as $5,000. And if an E&O lawsuit occurs and you are the agent who is involved in that lawsuit, then that deductible is your cost, not the company's. So please read this, please understand. Now this says a $5,000 deductible. We've recently seen a $2,500 deductible. So hopefully it's just up to 5. But get these documents in your file if you can, and then that will waive the deductible. If you can't get it in there, then that deductible is going to stand and it will have to be paid. There are going to be some occasions when you can't get all these documents. If you're selling a brand new house, that seller, that builder is not going to prepare a seller's property condition disclosure. So that's going to eliminate any new house if you sell that. If you're working with a relocation company or a foreclosure company, they're not going to be able to fill out a seller's property condition disclosure either. So that will eliminate it. The other thing that will eliminate it is if you are the listing agent and you also are the selling agent, that is a form of limited consensual dual agency that the lender will, that the E&O company will not accept. Now, if this is your listing and another agent in the company sells it and there is a lawsuit, then that form of limited consensual dual agency will be covered. Again, if you have any questions, ask Vicki or Carol, or text me or email me. Document number 3. This is the compliance list that our compliance officer checks for every closing that you have and every listing that you take. Before a commission can be dispersed, every item on this list must be in command, or if there's ever any exception, it would be something that I would have to approve and say that this is okay, that it's not in there for this reason. So make sure that you get this in as soon as you have a contract so that the compliance officer can start reaching out to you to let you know if there's anything that you're missing. Again, ask questions. You may get tired of hearing that. Still going to say it a lot. Oh, and let me say one more thing. Y'all, please call me. For example, right now, I'm going to be in this class working on this recording for maybe an hour to an hour and a half. I'm not going to answer my phone. I'm not even going to read a text or read an email. I will do it when I'm out. Most of the time, I'm where I can at least shoot you back a text that says, I'm not where I can talk. I'm on a Zoom call or wherever, and then send me a text or I'll call you back. But please understand, you are not bothering me. I've had folks say, well, I just feel like I keep on bothering you. You're not bothering me. What bothers me would be if you should have called and asked and you chose not to. And then just out of innocence or not knowing, you made a mistake that gets the entire transaction all tangled up. So until you're sure of what you're doing, if you don't know, reach out to Vicki, your productivity coach, or reach out to me. Let me tell you something else. If you're sitting in this class and you are not in productivity coaching, I think that you really should rethink that. Look at your production, see how well you're doing, and everybody wants a shortcut to success. And you know what? There's not many shortcuts in the world to success, but I can promise you, following the models and participating in productivity coaching is one of those shortcuts. So that's the real truth. Think about this as you've been in orientation today. Think about this and sit down with Vicki and talk with her about what she does in productivity coaching and how that can help you become more successful more quickly. I think that's important. Now, that's my lesson for the day. You may hear it again. I can't be sure. All right. The next document that you're going to have in your compliance is going to be RECAD. This is required by the Alabama Real Estate Commission. If they come in and they audit us, this is one of the documents that they look to see if it's in the file. That's why compliance has this on the compliance checklist, and that's why you will not be able to receive your commission check if this is not included. Now, let me say this: the seller or your client, the buyer, does not have to sign it. Law does not say he has to sign it. Law just says it has to be presented. So once in a while, I've had agents call and say, well, my client didn't want to sign that. Okay, that's all right. As long as you presented it right across the top. I, Jimmy Ann Campbell, presented this to John Means on, and then the date and the time, and he chose not to sign it. Law allows us to accept it that way. So that's the RECAD document. The next document goes into limited consensual dual agency. If you are a member of KW Montgomery, and that also at this time and point includes our Prattville office, we might even can stretch it and say Auburn, but Auburn soon will be a business center. But KW location in Prattville and the KW location in Montgomery, we're all the same company. We're the KW Montgomery. So if one of our agents in either of these offices sells a property of another one of our agents in either one of these offices, this document should have been presented if you're taking a listing at listing, but for your buyer must sign this prior to showing them this house. And then the seller also will have to sign it and give us permission to work on both sides of the transaction. If you ever have a buyer who says, I don't want you all both in the same company to work as a limited consensual dual agent, I want to be able to absolutely have you as my individual agent, well, then they can't buy a KW listing. So that's just an issue that a good explanation to someone makes this be acceptable, because it really is. They just need to understand how it works. The only thing that you cannot do in limited consensual dual agency is tell them what to offer in a dollar amount. You can show them comparables. You can show them what the market says. You can give them anything that is public record. But if they say to you, okay, John, I see these numbers, but I don't know what to offer. What do you recommend? Your answer is, we've already talked about this, that we're in a limited consensual dual agency relationship, and I cannot let a number come out of my mouth. I will write anything that you want me to. So you tell me. Be real careful with that. That's very important. Okay, the next document is transaction brokerage agreement. In a minute, I'm going to have a document that says, well, I should do that one first. Excuse me, I probably got these out of order in your packet. Take the next two documents and slide them to the side for just a minute, and take the third document that says exclusive buyer agent agreement. This is where the Alabama Real Estate Commission says if you're going to be working as a buyer's agent, it must be in writing. It can't just be said, okay, I want you to be my agent. We have to have this as a contract. This is a legally binding document that can be terminated very easily in writing between the parties, but we have to have it in writing. If this is not in writing, then you're not working as a buyer's agent. This is another required document in our compliance, so make sure you have that. Now, there may be a time when you just don't feel comfortable working with a buyer as his agent, because you have to give them your fiduciary responsibility. You are responsible for helping them to make a good decision, and it's your job to find the information that they need to know in order to make that decision. If you're not comfortable with that, then you may use a transaction brokerage agreement. And what this says, and take these two documents and read them. These are two documents. One of them is one that Adam added to our files, and I think it's a very good document. It does a very good explanation of what transaction brokerage is. And then the other document that we have is an agreement that they're signing saying, yes, again, I understand that you're not going to be my agent. I understand that you're going to do these things. You're going to assess my real estate needs. You're going to help me locate the available properties. You're going to put in writing what I want. You're going to present it to the seller. You're going to locate and help me find financing if I need financing. And then you're going to help me bring this to closing. But you are not an agent for these buyers. A good way or a good time to use this would be, for example, if you have a listing and you receive a call from somebody from California. You don't know them, but you know your seller and you've worked with them a lot, and you don't know these people from California, and they want to make an offer, okay? That little red flag might just go up in your head, and you might be going, yeah, I don't really know you very well. I haven't worked with you. I have not sat with you in my office and given you a buyer's presentation or consultation. I don't know you. Work with them as a transaction broker. That could be something that saves you. And when you're in a position like that and you're not comfortable, y'all, please call me and let's talk about the situation you're in and the ways to handle it. Ask Vicki again if you have any questions. All right, document next. Before you write that offer, as you can see on that first page I gave you, that said, read this to know what you need to do before you actually set the appointment to write the offer. And your buyer you may do it by e-sign, they may not even come in. But you need to have a cost worksheet from the lender. Y'all, don't do this out of your head or from what you did with the last transaction, because you'll just end up not getting it exactly right. You don't want that to happen. So be sure that you get a cost worksheet from the lender, and don't have the seller, the buyer, just sign that cost worksheet and try to pass it off as this document. It won't work. Alabama license law says that the agent must reduce in their own handwriting the numbers and as close as they can, the estimated expenses that the purchaser will have to pay. Now, let me tell you, as an Alabama real estate commissioner, this is something that we are discussing that, okay, yet it's still law, but we're working to see if there might be a way that we can say you as agents shouldn't have to do this on this document. If you have the document, the cost worksheet from that lender, and you can explain it to the buyer, or the lender can explain it to the buyer, and they sign it, then that should be sufficient. But right now, I just hope it didn't confuse you, because that's not the law. So don't go tell anybody I said that you didn't have to do it, because you do. So take that cost worksheet and take the numbers and transpose them to this document. Once you've done that, and the reason I'll always say to do the purchaser's estimated net sheet first is to make sure that they understand what their down payment is going to be, and are there any closing costs that they're going to have to pay. And that also lets you know as you're getting ready to write the contract, if you're going to be asking the seller to pay any closing costs, then that gives you that number, and that's a true number. That's not a guesstimate that you just picked out of the air. Once, horror story in our company, we had an agent who was working with a lender out of Atlanta, and he had tried over and over and over again to get the cost worksheet from that lender, and the lender never sent it. The buyer was adamant they wanted to make an offer on this house. Now, this is going to be a couple of years ago, so the market was not hot like it is right now. So there was actually enough time to have gotten that document very, very easily. The buyer was insistent. The agent didn't call me and talk to me about it. The agent went ahead and wrote the offer. It was negotiated and accepted, and the agent guessed about what the closing costs might be. When it came back to the truth and when we're getting ready to close, the agent had guesstimated a little bit over $2,000, not enough. So the contract says, once the seller has agreed to pay closing costs, any closing costs other than what the seller agreed to pay is paid for by the buyer. And I can tell you that was one unhappy camper. We were able to work it out, but y'all, please don't put us back in that position again. Make sure you've gotten all those numbers and you've done it correctly. Again, sometimes if you have a lender who won't send you those documents like you're asking, my opinion is you're working with the wrong lender. Make a relationship with lenders who will supply you with what you need to do a good professional job. And remember, they don't get paid either if you don't have a closing. So you don't want a closing to fall apart because you did something really goofy by guessing. And you know what? He could have ended up in an E&O lawsuit, even though the contract says the buyer is going to pay the extra money. He could, the agent put in writing on that purchaser's net sheet those costs, and he had signed it. So I think we would have been in trouble then. So make sure you get that cost worksheet and that that document is completed correctly. Once you've done that and everybody is ready to go, make sure that your buyer has brought a check when they're sitting with you to write the offer, or if this is an e-sign, that they are where they can overnight or deliver to you very quickly that binder check. Because when you write this contract, and this is a 7-page legally binding document that I wish we had time today that we could go through this line by line, because I'm going to say the first 3 pages of this document are critical. Excuse me, the first 2 pages of this document are critical. The other pages are pre-printed, pretty much standard, but what you put on the first 2 pages, that is the marching orders to the lender. It tells the lender what the buyer and the seller have agreed to. It tells the closing attorney how this loan is going to close, and it is legally binding. Also, if your buyer doesn't understand this, don't get them to sign it. Make sure they understand the numbers, make sure they understand what the contract says. And in another thing, don't write this by yourself. If you are I don't like to say new licensee, but if you have not been licensed long and you've not had a lot of activity yet, please be sure that either Vicki is with you and is walking you through this document with your client, or that I'm with you and that I'm walking you with your client through this form. We would like to say, you just can't write this offer without us, because we want you to be successful quickly, to be satisfied, and to get this closing to come to closing. So Vicki, talk to them please today about how you want them in your productivity coaching classes to handle writing this offer, because I think it's critical. And you and I have already talked about this, so I know you understand what we're talking about. Okay, any questions? Let us know. All right, the next thing in your packet is just the first page of the lead-based paint disclosure. This is like a 20-page or 19-page document, and I didn't copy them all for you. Just wanted to give you the first page so you would know what it looks like. And if your house, the house that you're selling, was built prior to 1978, law says, and that's the Environmental Protection Agency, a federal government agency, says you must give your buyer this document. They must have it. And then this is a form that is the lead-based paint disclosure that the listing agent has to provide to you, the selling agent. And the first part of this document should have been completed by the seller and then signed by the seller and dated. You will then give this information to your buyer. Your buyer will sign here that they received the documents from the seller, if there are any, and that they received, they're going to sign here that they received this lead-based pamphlet saying that you gave them this. And then they're going to say, did they get a 10-day warranty? Or did they wait, an opportunity to have an inspection of the lead-based paint, or they waived the opportunity to conduct that. And then the buyer signs it and dates it, and you as the agent signs it and dates it. So if there are 3 buyers and there are only 2 lines here, you're going to just create another line and have that 3rd buyer sign and date it. And up where they have to initial, y'all, if this document says initial, that doesn't mean put an X or a check mark. If it says initial, that means initial. So read what it says. And so if you've got 3 people as a buyer, then make another little line and let them sign there. You can adjust this form. The other thing that I do is I like to write the address up across the top of this, because what that says is I won't get it mixed up and put it in the wrong file. Because sometimes you can't read people's signatures, and you need to have this so that you will know where it goes. The Environmental Protection Agency audits real estate companies. I don't know that they've ever been to Montgomery, but when I say that, they'll be probably here before Christmas. I hope not. And they love to audit some of the larger companies, which we are one of those with more transactions. So they will come in, and every house, they pull the files, every house that was built before 1978, we have to have this document in that file. Not only do we have to have the document in that file, it has to be completed accurately. Everything has to be initialed and checked if it says checked. It has to be signed by all the parties to the contracts, both the buyers and the sellers, and dated. And the agents involved in the transaction must sign it and date it. In that audit, if even a date is left off, the EPA can fine us $11,000 per occurrence. And when I say us, that means you. That fine is passed on to the agent to pay. Y'all, $11,000 to buy a car, holy Moses. Make sure that you get this done correctly, and compliance is really, really careful about this. Do not allow your buyer to sign the bottom of this document if the top is not completed, and if you don't have signatures down here from the seller and their agent and dated correctly. Because how can your buyer answer his part correctly? He can't if he doesn't know what the seller is telling him. So please don't turn into compliance. And we've had it before, just the bottom part filled out and your signatures. And we've had an agent be really upset. Well, I can't control that seller. Well, you're right, you can't, but you better go get it fixed. So please, y'all, that's a real critical document. I hope I scared you. Please say I did. Make sure it's right. The other documents are things, this is going to be required. We want the buyer to know that he has the right to get a professional home inspection. And in the contract, there's going to be a paragraph in there where you're going to give him a timeline, a number of days where he can get that inspection. Some buyers choose not to get an inspection. I think that's that could be dangerous, but if this is a house that the buyer knows they're going to totally gut it and wipe it out and be redoing it, and they choose not to spend the cost on that home inspection, well, maybe that's okay. But if that's the case, then they're going to need to sign here that they choose not to get that inspection. And also, if they're going to get an inspection, we want them to sign here that they're getting that inspection. So this is a document, again, that is critical. For your protection, Mr. Buyer, get a home inspection. If they are going to waive it, this is a waiver that says, I'm just not going to get this done. I don't care. I understand, and I've been told I need to get it, but I just don't want to do it. So have them sign this. Also, and I did not copy this, on the home warranties, and I included, and these are the last things in this packet, just copies of the first page of the warranties. Inside this warranty pamphlet, there is a place for your seller to sign and waive, saying that they don't want a warranty, which means they're also not getting that home inspection. I got that mixed up, y'all. I jumped ahead. Erase what I just said, please. Back up, stop, quit. They don't want a home inspection. Get them to say and sign. They don't want a professional home inspection. Now, stop, put your brain back in gear. Stay with me. I might make it. Let's move forward. Once you've gotten a professional home inspection and you've gotten that inspection back, rather than, and we've done this a long time, but there is a better way to do it. And this is the way KW Montgomery is now handling home inspections. Once you've gotten that home inspection back and your buyer has decided what repairs they want to ask the seller to do, let's reduce those requests to this written document. I was very impressed. I've negotiated and watched my niece buy a house in North Alabama, and that company used a very similar document. I also have a friend who is buying a house in Florida, and she wanted me to look at this for her. That company used a very similar document. So let's don't rely anymore on emails or texts. For that professional home inspection, get it on this document and get signatures. Compliance is looking for this. Once the inspection is done, once the seller has agreed to make the repairs and the buyer's okay with it, this is an inspection contingency removal that says, okay, I accept everything, let's roll forward and let me sign off on this. I'm ready to go. All right, the next thing is when you're working with a buyer, make sure, number one, before you write the offer, and I think I said that on that sheet of instructions at first, call the other agent to make sure that that property is still available. Let that agent know that you're going to be writing an offer, because oftentimes agents have just negotiated an offer. They've not had enough time to get it into MLS as contingent yet. And here you are out here struggling, writing an offer for a buyer who's going to be mighty disappointed if they find out later that the house was already sold when they submitted their offer. So number one, call that agent to make sure the house is still available. And at the same time, ask that agent for this seller's property condition disclosure. Get them to email it to you. Sometimes the agent has already put it in as an auxiliary document in MLS. That's pretty smart. Or they can email it to you. Or you may have an agent who says, my company doesn't do these. They're not required by Alabama license law, so we just don't do it. Well, you know what, y'all, that's true. Seller's property condition disclosures are not required by law in the state of Alabama. Our company chooses to ask our sellers to fill these out. And we like to give these to our buyers so that our buyers can see everything that the seller is saying and disclosing about that house. In our state, 95% of the lawsuits involving real estate occur after closing, where the new owner, the new buyer, alleges that the seller fraudulently hid something from them. So I think as a good, strong professional, as part of our working with our buyers as a buyer's agent, we try our very best to get this property condition disclosure. There are going to be times when you can't. And this also is another one of the documents that will help you waive that E&O deductible if you have that in your file. There are going to be times when the seller is going to say, I live in California. That was my Aunt Helen's house. I think I visited her one time when I was 3 years old. I don't know anything about the condition of that house. On our seller's property condition disclosure, there is a place where they can mark, I've never lived in that house. I don't know anything about it. So they don't have to fill this out as a seller for your buyer, but it would be nice if they would say why they wouldn't do it if we're working with them and we're listing their house. But for a buyer, remember, we're trying to gather all the information that we can so they can make a good decision. Get this document before you write the offer so they can read it. If in fact the listing agent has it, this is a document that's going to be required by our compliance. Our compliance doesn't say it has to be filled out. It just has to say that you made an attempt to get it for your buyer. And if the agent says, the listing agent says, I don't have it in my file, get them to send you that by email, and we will accept that in compliance. Just 1 second here. Excuse me. If you want to, y'all stand up and stretch. I surely have been gabbing a lot. And if you like to, what I'll do right here for just a minute, if I know how, I don't want to end this because I'm sure that if I do, I will not get it started again. So never mind. Just step up and stretch if you need to. Let's roll on. The next thing, this is an auxiliary document that we have that I recommend highly that you use this because it is also on our compliance checklist, that if your property is on a septic tank or if there is well water, use this document, get the seller to fill it out. And this again is just gathering more information so that your buyer can make a good decision. Y'all, you'd be surprised. There are a lot of wells in neighborhoods that you would never guess. Wind Lakes in Montgomery has a lot of wells in those backyards. And those wells are in there because they fill the swimming pool up with water and they water the lawns. And then if it's on a septic tank, we want to know about that. And this also lets your new buyer know that they have the right and probably should get a septic tank inspection if the seller can't give them an inspection that was done within the last year. In the contract also, it says that we recommend that our buyers get a survey, a new survey, not an old survey. Things could have changed since that last survey when that seller bought that house, 20 years ago. They added a pool, they added a garage, they added a privacy fence in the backyard, and that's not going to be on that survey. Now, if a survey was run last year and your buyer chooses to take that, I'm never going to recommend they do. I'm going to always say, and I want us to always say, that they need to get their own brand new survey. But if they choose not to, this again is your protection as an agent that says, I told you about a survey, I explained to you, and the contract explains to you why you should get a new survey. If you choose not to, then I need you to sign this survey waiver. Gang, if there is a lawsuit and it involves anything about property lines, you will be thankful, very, very thankful, if they didn't get a survey, if you have this waiver in your file. I've had agents sometimes complain about, you know what, we got so stinking many documents that we have to have. This is all nuts. You may feel that way until there's a lawsuit involved, and then you will kiss every one of these pieces of paper because you'll be surprised how much they will save you and allow the judge to let you loose in summary judgment. So make sure your file is complete. The next thing is, let's leave that like this for this buyer for a minute, and then let's go on to these warranties that I made copies of the first pages of them. I don't care which warranty you use. Let your buyer make that decision if there is not one offered in MLS. If the seller in MLS is offering a home warranty, they will tell you which one. It will say Old Republic, or it'll say AHS or 210. Then you should, as the selling agent, write that into your contract where you're asking for that warranty and put the name of the one that the seller has already agreed to pay for. Don't go put a new one in there. Choose the one that they are offering. Now, I would recommend that you ask for the most expensive of those warranties, like the Supreme or whatever it might be, because if not, then you're going to get the least expensive one. So ask for the price range of the warranty you want, but accept the warranty that the seller is offering. And also give the brochure to the buyer your buyer, so he will know what the seller is offering him and he will have it to read. Now, in MLS, if it says no warranty is offered, then it is required that you present these warranties to your seller, to your buyer. It is required by KW Montgomery that you do that. And if they don't want to buy the warranty themselves, that's okay. Then get them to sign the waiver. That's where I jumped over to this a few minutes ago and confused you and myself. So we need to show that either the seller gave the warranty at closing, or you offered the buyer the opportunity to pay for the warranty themselves and they chose not to. If they chose to pay for it, then it will be on the closing statement and that'll work. If they don't want it and there's not one on the closing statement, then they need to sign this. If for any reason the sale fails to close and the binder has already been collected and the binder is either in the listing company's escrow or the attorney or title company's escrow, or even into the selling company's escrow, if it's in one of those places, then it fails to close, then the buyer and the seller have to sign what we call a binder, a disbursement for the binder. Alabama license law says that a qualifying broker may not release from his escrow account any escrow without a written document from the buyer and the seller giving the broker permission to release it. That's not our money. You know, sometimes when I'm involved with an agent and I know what's been going on and I know why a sale failed to close, and I definitely usually have an opinion about what should happen to that binder money, but that's not my money and I cannot make that decision. The seller and the buyer have to agree, and the agent brings that binder disbursement form in our office to our market center administrator, who is Susan, and that money, that check then will be cut. If the buyer and the seller, if they want to split it, they can do that. We just need the marching orders on that binder disbursement form. If they cannot agree who gets it, and they're saying, nope, I want my binder back, and the seller said, I've had my house off the market for a month and I'm not giving it to you, then that binder is going to sit in our escrow account until the two of them decide who gets it, or one of the other of them sues the other client, the other buyer or seller, in small claims court, and then the judge tells us who to give it to. Y'all, we've had some before the Real Estate Commission. We've had hearings before where the broker of the listing company did not disperse the funds correctly, and they ended up before the Real Estate Commission and could have their licenses suspended and fined really big bucks. So we're not going to go there. So get that binder disbursement form signed, but I hope we don't ever have to have very many of those. I'd rather have closing disclosures and commission checks coming in so that you guys can earn money and go, yes, we did it and it worked. All righty, now let's assume that you've got a buyer who is moving somewhere. When you go, if your buyer ever has a friend who is moving somewhere else, your buyer's buying the house you're selling them. This is a referral form where you can refer a client, either a buyer or a seller, to another agent in another city and earn a referral fee. We like to ask for 25% of the side that is referred. What that means is if it is a buyer, whatever the buying agent's commission is, we're asking for 25% of that to be sent to KW Montgomery, so that will be your money to be split with the company. I call that mailbox money. That's pretty easy. And the same thing when you have listings and your seller's moving somewhere else, goodness, please remember to refer them to someone in that other city where they're going. As a matter of fact, I actually got a referral check today from Texas, where I had a house where the seller told me they were moving to Texas, and I asked them, could I connect them with a KW agent there? And I did, and it closed, and that money came in today, and gosh, that was just for making a phone call. That's pretty good. So this is the referral form. The last document in this file is related, but it's related to you personally. If you, as an agent, want to buy a house for yourself, either for your personal residence or as an investment, Alabama license law says you must do this. You must fill this personal interest disclosure form out. You must give it to the listing agent and let that listing agent know that you are the person who will probably be the buyer, and the licensee has to sign it, and then the client has to sign it. That would be you. So look at this. This is a form that is required by the Alabama Real Estate Commission. If we as licensees are interested in buying properties for ourselves personally. Okay, I'm going to say we hurried there. That's the part, again, just for the buying side. Whoever's playing this in the training room right now, if you want to put me on pause, let folks stretch, go get something to drink, take a break, jump up and down, do something. This would be a good time to pause me. And then when we come back, I'm going to begin, and this will be much shorter because I did not put all the documents, each one of them, in this stack of documents, because most of them, a lot of the auxiliary documents are in the packet we just went over, and I chose not to copy them again. So take a break, go get something to drink, and come back. Okay, hello there. I'm going to say you've had your break, and now let's start all over again. This deals with if you're getting ready to list a property. And hot dog listings, I'm telling you what, if you get a listing today, you're just about guaranteed a check in your pocket. So get out there and look for those listings. There have been in other cities a lot of houses that quickly have a sign pop up that says come in soon. Well, it's in Montgomery, and the Montgomery Area Association of Realtors and MLS has prepared this document that if your buyer does not want their house in MLS yet, maybe they're getting something finished on the inside and they want it to be tip top before they put it out on the market for sale. You may use this coming soon addendum, and you may put a coming soon sign in that front yard, which will in fact let people start gathering interest. The guidelines here tell you how you may and may not do that. This property may not be coming soon for 30 days. It can be coming soon for a very short window. So read the document, make sure you understand it. If you have any questions, ask Vicki or ask me. Again, I prepared this document that says this is preparation for the paperwork when you're getting ready to list a property. This talks to you a little bit, and everybody can do this different. You can customize this. This talks about the preview of the property when you go to see it. Some agents like to list it on that preview right then. Some agents like to come back, do a CMA, and go back, set another appointment to come back again. Y'all, there's many right ways to get it done. The main thing is just make sure you do it accurately and professionally. And the sooner you can get that signature on that listing, the better for you, because that's the sooner you can get that check in your pocket, because the buyer is going to be hopping on it really, really soon. So this just gives you, again, an outline of what you might consider doing as you're taking a listing. One more time in the packet, I thought it would be very important to remind you about the documents you have to have, even if you're the listing agent, if you're involved in a lawsuit, for that zero deductible. Make sure you do that. This is the listing compliance list. This is what compliance officer will be looking for when you have taken a listing, and they check these once a day. So get this done and use this as a guide. Ask Vicki if you have a question what it means, or text me or call me and I'll explain to you also. Again, when you first meet a seller, just like when you first meet a buyer, Alabama Real Estate Commission says, talk about RECAD. Again, talk about limited consensual dual agency. When you're listing that house, that seller is thinking that you are going to be their agent because you're asking them to let you be a seller's agent. Explain to them the one time when you cannot be their single seller's agent. You have to be a limited consensual dual agent if a KW Montgomery and the office in Prattville is included, because that is a KW Montgomery office, sells the house. So give that to them. All right, then when I'm going to sit down and start talking with them, and I'm going to have prepared a competitive market analysis. And you know what? That's where you go into MLS and you show them the numbers that say what their house will sell for. And y'all remember, numbers don't lie. I, as a seller, I probably want a lot more money than my house would sell for and or appraise for. So what I want and what I get probably may not be the same thing. So I too would have to rely upon the MLS numbers to know that numbers don't lie. That is the range of where your house is going to sell. So show them those numbers first. Arrive upon a value and a price that they agree upon. And then once you've done that, this is something else you need to talk to them before you complete for them their seller's estimated net proceeds. Talk to them about the warranty. Make sure you understand these warranties and make sure you understand how it works for a seller. A warranty goes into action for a seller once they list their house, and it's a limited warranty for them also, but it will cover some items during the listing period, even if that house never sells and closes. They're still covered, and if they had that repair made, they don't have to repay that repair. That was basically would turn out to be a gift from one of the warranty companies. But in today's market, don't think that's going to happen. So get them to agree to offer the warranty, or if they're not going to offer one, you need to get them to waive that warranty as the seller, saying no, they are not going to have a warranty on their house. Once you know whether or not there's going to be the warranty and the cost of that warranty, and you have agreed upon a sales price of their property, then before you fill out the listing document, prepare for them this seller's estimated net proceeds. Alabama license law says you have to do this when you list a property. You have to put in writing what your seller is going to be walking away from the attorney's office with, and that's pretty important. So you would put your list price here. If there is a mortgage balance as of today, they'll need to give you that. If you know how to prorate the taxes, from looking at the taxes in the tax records in Matrix, you can pull that out. Put your realtor's fee on here, put the home warranty on here. That's why I like to talk to them about the warranty before I get here. Put the warranty amount on there, and then I put the closing costs. If they guesstimate, they're going to pay some closing costs. Whatever they put there, and oftentimes I put zero. That's just me, because if the buyer wants them to pay closing costs, I'd like the buyer to let that be part of the negotiations. But talk to your seller about that. Some sellers will agree to pay a minimal amount, and then they still may end up paying more. But talk to us about this. Talk to Vicki about what she does when she lists properties. And if you're on a specific case with a specific house, call me. I'll help you walk through this. That'll be good. Fill this out. Once you've done that, you have accomplished getting your listing. From there, you know what your sales price is, what your list price is. You know, you've got your real estate fee on there, and you're able to show them approximately what they're going to net when they leave the closing attorney's office. Now, let me stop and pause right here. This is the listing document. Once an offer comes in, you have to prepare a new one of these that has the information that that buyer is asking the seller to do, so that the seller will know if they accept that offer from this buyer, what their net will be on that sale coming from the attorney's office. All right, that's easy enough. If your buyer accepts that offer, good, you got it. If your buyer, if your seller, I'm going to get this right in a minute, I think. Maybe I will. If the seller counters back, then you have to prepare another one showing that seller on his counter what he will net when he leaves the attorney's office. So in other words, every time there is a change to that contract in negotiating, every time there are new numbers in negotiating on that contract, you must prepare for your seller a new net sheet. And you know what? A little bit earlier when we were talking about buyers, the same thing. I failed to remember to tell you then that on that purchaser's estimated net sheet, you must, every time there is a counter, you must prepare a new net sheet or estimated expenses sheet. That is Alabama license law. You don't have a choice. That's just what you got to do. And dadgummit, I'm sorry I forgot to tell you that. Well, at least it finally kicked in, so that helps a little bit. All right, after you've gotten your numbers worked out, then you're going to fill out your exclusive right to sell listing agreement. And Vicki can help you with this. I know she has classes on it, and that's really, really important. And this is where they're going to let you be their exclusive agent. You're going to sell this house for them. And y'all, all binding contracts in the state of Alabama have to have a beginning date and an ending date. See if you can get your seller to allow you to list their house for 6 months. Then that way you won't be running back and forth. But if they only want to list it with you for 30 days and you're willing to take it and run with it, because in today's market, it'll probably sell in that time period. But give yourself enough time for the just in case to do some marketing on this exclusive right to sell listing agreement and work with Vicki. And again, I hope that Vicki is your coach in productivity coaching to work on this. And I'll help you with it if you have a specific question. Remember, y'all, I'm not the productivity coach. I guess I'm the broker who is to keep us all out of real estate jail. So I'll be happy to answer any specific questions about those listings if you're running into an issue on that. Here is a transaction broker listing agreement. And there's 2 of them. The first document you saw earlier that explains what transaction brokerage is. But let's just take a little break here and assume that you have a for sale by owner out there. And y'all, I know I'm jumping back and forth between buyers and sellers. And I know that you're probably going, what in the world is she talking about? I thought we were talking about listings. Well, we are. But if you have a buyer who wants to see a for sale by owner, you certainly want to go list it so that you can agree, you can find out and be assured that you won't be working for free if your buyer wants to buy that house. And then after the contract is presented, that for sale by owner decided they're just not going to pay you because you didn't talk about that to begin with. That gives me a headache to think about. I hope it does you too. So read this document, understand it, and before you ever show a for sale by owner to a buyer, before you ever show it to them, have a conversation with the buyer and get them to sign this. Or again, you may find yourself just working for your health, and that's just not a lot of fun. The last thing in this file right now is going to be the residential profile. No, it's not. Excuse me. This is the residential profile that you will need to fill out in order to put it into MLS, to put your listing, in this brand new listing that you're taking, into MLS. And Vicki can help you with this. Vicki also can show you how to clone a listing. If a property has ever been in the multiple listing service before, rather than getting this entire document completed all over again, this you'd have to do if it's never been in MLS. But you might, in fact, okay, I'm still at the office recording this, and phone duty is just telling me they're going for the day. I think I'm locked in here all by myself with the ghosts. Go in there and clone the house, and then you'll have to be careful because some of the information is going to have to be changed. So make sure you do that. But that's an easy way to get all the legal things into MLS, is to clone it. And when you are cloning a listing, you can only clone the front, the first picture in MLS. If you're going to use pictures that another agent in there has, you will need to reach out to that agent and get that permission in writing. If not, they can report you to MLS and there could be a fine for that. So you may copy that first picture and then be sure you've got somebody lined up before you put your house on the market to be the photographer, if you're not going to be the photographer yourself. And y'all, I can take iPhone photos, but if I really have a good listing and I want it to sell, I highly recommend that you invest in your profession and hire a professional photographer to take photos of your listing. That will cost you maybe $125, maybe $150, but it's well worth it so that your home, when it hits MLS, is perfect. So make sure you do that and go with the photographer when they're taking those photos in case you need to move things around. Sometimes the kitchen cabinets just may be slammed full of things. Well, I'm going to get permission and I'm going to move those things off, get the photos taken, and then I'm going to put them right back on there where they came from. So go with the photographer. Make sure that you're getting all the pictures you want. Some photographers may say don't show up, but they're not going to do that. So make sure you get good photos so that when you have gotten the listing paperwork filled out, you have enough time to get the photos done by the photographer, and then you'll have those photos to upload into MLS. And now people are coming in after hours. That's good. I don't know who that is. They've got a dog with them. Okay. Hope the door was locked. Goodness. Okay, that's the residential profile sheet. And then the last thing you want to get your seller to fill out is going to be this seller's property condition disclosure. We talked about this in the other section of the documents, and that's important. And here at the top, this will say that this house was occupied by the seller. If the owner ever lived in this property, then get them to sign the dates that they lived there. If a tenant lives in this property, get them to put the dates that it has been rented. And if it's vacant and they've never lived there, get them to sign that. This also has a place here where they sign, where they say they understand that we're going to share this information with the new buyer. So get this filled out and that will work. Katie, this was a very quick overview of what we needed to do today, of just talking about the documents. Y'all, again, I really, really wish I were right there in that room with you so that you could raise your hand and say, hey, tell me that again, I don't understand, or is there another way we can do that? Because if that's the case, then absolutely, I would say yes, and we would make it work. So thank you very much for being here today. Y'all are fantastic. See you soon. Tell you what, go get a listing And then tomorrow, go help somebody buy a house. I'm so proud to be your broker. I'm so proud to have you at KW Montgomery. And we want to hold hands with you and circle the wagons around you and help you fly high so that you can earn all the things that you want to do and develop that life worth living, among lots of other things. Talk to you soon. Give me a call, 334-221-5800. Thank you. Goodbye.